A lot of the times, why we say networking does not work or we say we hate networking is because of the way that we're going about networking. We're networking the wrong way, we're building relationships the wrong way. We are going into it from a consumption mindset. We're going into it wanting to get something. It's like going to an ATM machine and wanting to get $20 out, but you haven't made any deposits. So you're drawing from an empty well. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the podcast. We are on episode number 7. We're moving right along. I am so happy that you are still on this journey with me. So today is not my normal day to record a podcast, but I have been having some conversations with a few folks that I met at a previous event. And so I wanted to spend some time as I'm talking to those folks and is bringing up some questions that my clients may have had in the past that I would want to address these things in real time. So while I do have some other topics that I do want to eventually discuss, we're going to be here a while. So why not talk about the things that are happening as we're going through them? And so that topic today is really going to be around networking and why people feel like networking just does not work. So we use networking for a lot of different things in our lives. And I don't particularly use the word networking. I like to say that I am building relationships or relationship building opportunities. And so you can use a relationship in any aspect of your life. So, for example, say you have little kids. I have several friends who have just had babies and say that they were looking for a pediatrician. Say this is their first baby and they're like, we're looking for a pediatrician. They might decide to reach out to someone in their network, someone who they have a relationship with, someone who they trust and say, hey, I know you have a newborn too. Who is your pediatrician? I know I've reached out to friends and asked for referrals for certain things. I've reached out to my network. I've put the ask out there in my network. And so I feel like we make this word networking seem really scary and heavy, and it might just be the word that you're using. So use a different word if that helps for you. So that's what I wanted to talk about today because I've been cultivating new relationships. I love the fall for several different reasons. And one of the things, if I look out my window right now, the leaves are falling in my backyard. And it's a shedding of the old, and for the spring is going to be a renewed, a new energy. And so I'm shedding some relationships and I am growing some other ones, and I am so excited about this. And I am an extreme introvert. So building new relationships is not something that comes easy to me. And being a woman of a certain age, cultivating new friendships can be difficult because I feel like, man, like the friendships that I want and I have are from, you watch TV shows. And I was just having a conversation with a few friends of mine, and we're talking about, oh my gosh, we've watched shows like Friends and they have been friends for forever. And then you have shows like Girlfriends, and they were friends in college. And you have just all the different shows growing up in like the 90s, early 2000s, where these people had cultivated long-standing relationships. And to think about having to go out here and build new relationships can be a little frightening sometimes. But it is also fun. Oh my gosh. I've had some conversations with some people and I got off the phone or off Zoom, and it has really gave me the energy that I needed for the day. And I'm so grateful and thankful for those people who I am just now starting to meet and just now growing relationships with. So thank you all for that. So that brings me to the conversation today of why networking does not work. And so I think one of the ways that we think about networking is really around obtaining a job. We want to send a message on LinkedIn to someone and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. I see that your company has a job opening. Hook me up." Just and that is not the way that may not yield the results that you want. I think the problem is that just like everything else, networking is 50-50. Life is 50-50. Some of it is going to work, some of it is not going to work. The way that you networked, or the way that you built relationships a year ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, may not be the same way that you build relationships now. The way that we built relationships earlier in COVID, early 2020, everyone wanted to like gather around and help other people and like be there for each other, especially when it came to the job market, because so many people were losing their jobs. People were literally like, "Hey, I want to help, I want to support." And now that things are, and I'm using air quotes, getting back to normal, you may not feel that same energy anymore, but that does not mean that it's not there. It just may not be in our face the same way, but it is still there. So everything is 50-50. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So a lot of the times why we say networking does not work, or we say we hate networking, is because of the way that we're going about networking. We're networking the wrong way. We're building relationships the wrong way. We are going into it from a consumption mindset. We're going into it wanting to get something. It's like going to an ATM machine and wanting to get $20 out, but you haven't made any deposits. So you're drawing from an empty well. When we do this, we're going to constantly feel like it's not working because we haven't put anything into it. It's just like I was talking about the fall, right? It's like harvesting. We cannot expect for the apple tree to give us apples if we have not seeded, if we have not soiled, if we have not nurtured, if we have not planted, if we have not watered, right? We have to give into it in order for it to give us something back. So I'm going to discuss some aspects of networking that you want to take a different approach on. I told you all this podcast is all about taking action, and I talked earlier in a previous podcast about consuming versus creating. And when you're listening to a podcast, when you're getting information, you're consuming. But I also want you to create, and I want you to take some action. So today there is going to be some action that I want you to take, and I would love for you to share your results. I'm going to share that at the end of the conversation. So you have to stay tuned. So one thing that I think we have to realize is that networking is a manual process. It does require for us to, it's not a one and done type of a thing. Networking is not this thing where you send out one email and you're going to get a response, and from that response is going to come a job, and you're going to just run off into the sunset and live happily ever after. I wish it worked that way, but maybe I don't really wish it worked that way. But networking is an action. And it does require you to manually do some things. It does require for you to manually send out an email. It does require for you to manually go on coffee chats or have coffee dates. And I'm going to talk about upcoming here later about some different types of coffee chats, because I feel like we only think about coffee chats from the perspective of I have to have a coffee chat with someone or informational interview with someone because I'm looking for a job. And there are so many other opportunities. Career development may just be the one aspect, but there are other aspects to why you want to cultivate and nurture and build relationships. But coffee chats, you may do a series of check-ins, a series of follow-ups. It may require for you to build relationships, not reactive, but proactively. And a lot of times when we are networking, we're doing it from a reactive standpoint. We're like, I need a job. Go on LinkedIn, send out an email, blast that I'm looking for a job. And it's very reactive. And so because we're doing it from a desperate energy, we feel like it's not working because no one has responded in the 5 minutes that I sent out this email. Or maybe you sent out 50 emails and no one has responded. It still doesn't mean that it's not working. It just means that it has not worked yet. Okay. So, why doesn't networking work? And I know you probably have asked yourself this question before, like, I'm doing this, but it's not working. And my question to you is, are you really doing it? Are you really reaching out with the right intent? For most of you, the answer is no. For the other of you who are reaching out and the answer is yes, my question is, what is the expected outcome that you desire? Because, see, we go into relationships with the wrong intention or expected outcome. So if you went into every relationship expecting for this person to be the one or the person you marry, every relationship, you go on one date, you're like, this is the person I'm going to marry. You're going into it with the wrong intention. You're going into it with the wrong strategy. You're going into it with an agenda. And anytime we already have an agenda, sometimes things are just doomed to go wrong, right? Because we're now putting out negative, bad energy or aura around what it is that we're looking to obtain. Okay. And so I want to give you a few tips on what you can do. And the first thing is going into it with a better mindset. I think that a lot of us, when we go into networking, and I'm an extreme introvert. It takes a lot of energy. I know I can get on a podcast. I'm on LinkedIn. I can be on social media, but the energy that it takes to be on social media and the energy that it takes to meet people in person, whether it's a networking event, I'm on social committees and boards, that takes a lot out of me. It drains me. So when I come home, I do need to rest mentally because I am tired. However, I had to take into consideration what was the outcome I really wanted. I knew that for me, in order to be successful and to get to the next level, my career, my business, my life personally and or professionally, that it was going to require for me to do something differently. And so as much as I did not like networking at the time, I also didn't like where I was. And so I had to decide, and this is where decision making is just so key in everything that we do. You get to decide, do you want to stay where you are because of your the fear of what relationships is going to do, or do you want to try it and get on the other side of that and see what can become of you and of the relationships? And there's a beautiful thing about what is unknown to us. Like, I don't know what the next 10 minutes is going to bring. I don't know what the next 10 days is going to bring, or the next 2 days. But that is the beauty of the unknown. And so you don't know what's on the other side of cultivating relationships. It could be a great start to a beautiful, beautiful relationship. But if you never try, you never know. And I know a lot of my listeners, you all have kids. And so I remember as a child, and I do this with my nephew all the time. I'm like, try this food. You never know. You might like it. Um, and we love Chick-fil-A. Side tangent. And like, he likes just the nuggets, and he's like, he doesn't like a sandwich. Bread and meat together is just not his thing. But he tried the original chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A, and he likes it. Never in a million years, getting him to try new things can be a little challenging at times. But once he tried it, he was like, it wasn't that bad. And that is what I think about networking. Try it. It's not bad. It's not. So that is what I'm going to say about that. But a few things I want you to take away is one is I think that we believe that we have to be this extreme person when it comes to networking. Like we have to go from 0 to 100 when it comes to networking. And it doesn't have to be complex. It can be very simple, but it all starts in your mind. And what I mean by that is you don't have to say, I know some of us like, I hate networking. Like hate is a strong word and we use it when it comes to networking. So let's reframe our wording around the word networking. And I just want to let me know if you would say the same thing if I was to ask you, do you hate building relationships? Would you still say yes? Or is it because of the word networking that you hate it? So answer that question first. Do I hate building new relationships? Do I hate meeting new people? Let me know your thoughts there. Because I felt like when I changed the words I use that it lifted, I sat differently. It did something to me. So I would love to know if you get that same type of energy when you change the words. Words are so important. Words are extremely important. It's funny because I remember as a kid, we used to say stick and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt me. Words absolutely can hurt. And they can hinder our progress. They can hinder how we level up in our lives, both personally and professionally. Words can hurt you. And saying that you hate networking or networking does not work can stunt your growth. It can keep you stagnant. It can keep you stuck. It can keep you with a lack of clarity about what it is you want to do. It can keep you where it is that you don't want to be. So the first thing is changing and reframing around the words that you use. Now, if you want to use the word, I hate networking, and great, fine with me. But what I want you to say is, I am working on not hating networking as much. I am working towards X. And I want to I'll share a little bit about me. Like right now, I'm on my new health journey. I'm always on a health journey. I'm never not going to be on one, but I'm changing what I'm saying around it. And I'm like, right now, I am a person who is working on eating clean. I am a person, and I go to the gym quite frequently, and I'm not a gym rat, but I'm a person who's working on my fitness goals, right? I can't remember what book it was, but he talked about like reframing and talking about I'm not a person who runs, but I'm a runner, right? And so reframe around that. You are someone who you're working on cultivating new relationships. You are working on building new relationships. You're working on meeting new people. Like, let's change our minds around it. That is the first thing. The second thing that I want you to do is think about what it is that you want your long-term plan to be around networking and building relationships. The thing is, again, I mentioned we go into relationships and we're looking for them to give us an immediate result. And I said this on a podcast I was a guest on before. I talked about standing in front of the microwave and you're like waiting on the popcorn to pop. The longer you stand there and wait on it, it just seems like the popcorn just never just pops off. Right? It just you're like, oh my gosh, it's been forever. Nothing's happening. But the moment you like walk away, it's like pop, 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 and it just starts going off. We were standing there waiting for the immediate gratification. So I want you to reframe again what it is that you want from the relationships that you're going to build. I don't want you, this is my goal for you. I don't want you to go into the relationships just wanting things to have an immediate outcome. I want you to build long lasting relationships that maybe it does not end in a job offer right away, because maybe there isn't an opportunity, but because you are building relationships, that there may be a great thing at the end of the rainbow, right? There is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Maybe it's not right there in front of you today, but there is the opportunity for it to present itself. Okay. Um, so think about what you want the outcome to be. We should never want the outcome to be like, I'm going to network with someone because I need a job. That should never be our intent, because that comes off as selfish, self centered, one sided. Like, we don't want people to believe that that's who we are, because that's not who we are in our core. But we do desire a better, healthy, non toxic working relationships. Absolutely. And so that's what we're going to talk about. I want to talk about in our next episode next week about some of the different coffee chats and how we can really go into those conversations and have meaningful conversations. Today, I'm just talking about just getting your mind wrapped around the idea of networking. And so next week, I'm going to talk about some of the questions you want to get into and what are some of those coffee chats and conversations, informational interviews that you should be having. Because again, I think sometimes we go into things and we miss out because we take a one-sided approach to networking. Everybody is usually approaching networking the same way, or you approach networking the same way, whether you're talking to the intern or whether you're talking to the senior manager, you're approaching networking the same way. And we have to, you know, figure out how we want to approach networking, especially if you're new to building relationships online and you don't know what to say. Start out with networking laterally versus networking up. I think we need to learn how to network across versus always networking up. Um, and that brings me to another point about niche networking. Yes, you can have, it's important to have relationships with people in different organizations, different fields, different roles, etc. But it is important for you to first stop before you ever decide to network and think about, this goes back to my comment about what do you want it to be? Because a lot of times when we're networking, especially if it's for job seeking purposes, it's only for the current position that we're looking to get. It's not for the longevity of our career. It's for the next role. And so I think we miss out on a huge opportunity when we only look to network for the next role. And I'll talk about this later in next week episode, but I had a client who knew exactly where she wanted to go in the next 5 years. And so her networking was not around where she wanted her next role to be. It was where she wanted the next role to be. And so I think when we approach, as our outcome from net perspective, it gives us so much clarity. And not thinking, now I do understand, let me be clear, that for those of you who are like, I am unemployed, I am underemployed, I'm looking to network my way out of my current situation because it is a dire need. That I completely understand. So this is me using that example is specifically for those people who are like, I know that where I want to go in my career, and the next role is just a part of that journey. And so networking laterally helps, but sometimes we do need to network up, but you have to know when to do that. And if you're new to building relationships online, you're new to doing that, starting laterally helps you to go up. Okay. So, a few things I want you to take away from today's conversation is really thinking about who do you want to be as you become this person who in not loves to network, because you don't have to love it, but you are looking to take a new approach to the way that you build relationships. You are someone who enjoys meeting new people. You are someone who is curious about the journey of other individuals. So take it from the standpoint of being curious and let me know what you get from that. So, what I want you to do for this week is to track your progress. So, as you are going on about your next 7 days, say, track how you are becoming that person who enjoys building relationships. Track how you are becoming the person who enjoys networking. Track how you are becoming the person who likes to cultivate relationships. Track your progress, track your wins, because the way that we continue to do things is because of the small wins and not the big wins, right? We fish, if we're going for the great white shark, and we don't catch him on the first run, we may just never get back out there again. But if we're like, oh, you know what? I caught a goldfish. I'm going to keep going. It wasn't, the big white shark, but it was something. And so track your wins. So over the next 7 days, what are you going to do? Maybe you're going to send 10, and you can use LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is not the only place for you to do this. Because what I want you to do is figure out how you can niche network. You don't have to just network with any and everyone, especially if you are in a job search. I highly recommend that you narrow in on the organizations and the people within the organizations that you want to work for and work with. So if Disney is a company that or Disney, Netflix, if those are companies that you want to work in, then start to cultivate and build relationships with people inside those organizations. That way you're not just all over the place with your network. You've had 500 new connections, but none of them are meaningful, and not because you have the 500. They're not of any interest. You just went on LinkedIn and just click connect, 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 connect. And there was no rhyme or reason about why you decided to connect with these particular individuals. So you want to niche down in your networking. So make sure that you are looking for individuals who have a similar or like background. One easy win is to connect with your alumni page on LinkedIn. Those people you already have relationships with. You went to the same school, maybe you've majored in the same thing, etc., etc. Maybe it's someone who worked at a previous company as you and you were there at the same time. Oh, I didn't know you at that time, but we have that thing in common. So you can niche down in your networking and start to network with people who have like and similar backgrounds to you. I like to say that let's go for the small wins first, right? Let's find people who have similarities. It makes it easy for us to relate. It takes away some of the nervousness. I'll look at professional organizations. For the folks in like HR, there is the SHRM, which is the Human Resource Association. My background is in supply chain, Institute of Supply Management, works well for me. If you are an accountant, there is maybe like a CPA organization. If you're a journalist, there's like the Journalist Association. If you are in engineering, women in manufacturing, the list goes on and on. Start there with those professional networking groups, and then you can start to expand out if it's necessary. If you're looking to go into a new industry, still you can connect with those folks who are in the new industry and bring some awareness to them of that you're trying to transition, and you would love to have them be a part of your network as you decide to make this transition from insurance to healthcare or whatever it may be. So go into it with intention. So this week, connect with 5 or 10 folks, and not just one day, not just 2 days. On LinkedIn specifically, you get 100 connections a week. So that is more than 10 a day. So if you did this for the next 10 days, then you should connect with 10 folks. And it starts over on Sunday. So it goes from Sunday to Sunday, right? So you have that 7-day period. You can connect with 12 to 15 folks a day. But just be intentional about the people who you want to connect with. What are some of the similarities? And then some of your wins that you want to track is, yes, everyone's not going to connect with you all at the same time. So maybe you send out 10 connections and only 3 of them connect with you. LinkedIn is still not a platform where a lot of people are on there daily. People are still on LinkedIn. I think like 2% of the people who have a LinkedIn account are on LinkedIn every day, or whatever the average may be. I don't know the data off the top of my head right now. So don't get discouraged if people don't connect back with you right away. Give them some time. And then, see if you can schedule some time to talk and to connect. And we'll talk about what some of those conversations that you want to have with those folks should be. But the first thing that you're going to do is just connect with people. It does not have to be LinkedIn. It could meet people in real life. You can go to real events, but you don't have to make it so dreadful and so stressful. Make it a low barrier to entry. Just connect with a few folks, say hello, thank them. The fortune is in the follow up. I think a lot of times, this is the last thing I'm going to say, is that we leave when we network and we connect with people, we just say thank you and then we ghost, right? Like, there isn't anything else. It's like you've asked someone on a date and then you've ghosted them, and then you expect for them to a month later, a year later, when you want something, you're like, hey, remember me? You have a job opening? It's like, no, they don't remember you because there was never any conversation. So we want to continue to keep the conversation going after we connect. This is something that I work with my clients on, because in my program, the Career Clarity Accelerator, there is a networking module. Module number 3 is where we go deep into networking, and I go into some frameworks about how to aid relationships. I talk about attract, invite, and delight inside relationships. So if you're like, hey, I'm stuck when it comes to relationships and networking, and I do want some support and I want to work with you to do so, then get on my calendar. Let's have a conversation. We do 30-minute career consults here where we will go through, I'll ask you what's working, what's not working in your current job search strategy that you have. We will see if it is a good fit for us to work together. And if it is, then we will work together one-on-one for 12 amazing weeks. So if you want more about that, check the show notes for details. All right. With that being said, I am going to talk to you next week. Be safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening. Like what you heard so far and want to take this work deeper than the podcast and work with me privately, one-on-one, then book a free sales call by clicking the link in the show notes below. Or you can visit www.nextlevelcareer.co/coaching. If you've enjoyed your listening experience, share this episode, then leave a rating and a review. Until next time.